Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to 4 Low Rocks. Today we're installing some muscle on the front of our JL. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm Mike. Welcome to 4 Low Rocks. Today, we're going to install this winch on the front of the JL. You know, there are times when I've been out on the trail and I've wondered what would I do if I get stuck, if I happen to get high-centered on a rock, get stuck in some loose sand or some mud. What would I do when I'm out there by myself? Which I don't advocate doing, by the way. It's only safer to be out with a buddy or a couple or a club when you're out in the woods or in the wilderness four-wheeling. So I decided one of the first things I wanted to do to the JL was to put a nice winch on the front of it. So I chose this Warn VR10S with the synthetic rope. I chose Warn because of the good reputation, the nice warranty that it has, and to know that many other Jeepers that I see around the area are running Warn winches on the front of theirs. I also looked into putting a winch on here just to be able to help from time to time when I'm out with the San Diego Jeep Club or other off-roading activities, because there might become a time when maybe somebody else gets stuck, somebody else goes off the trail and we have to do an on-the-spot recovery, and I'd like to be able to assist with that as well and not be dependent on everybody else in the club to maybe extract me from a situation that I might have gotten myself into on my own accord. So let's get started with the install. This is going to require taking the bumper off, putting a winch plate between the frame rails, mounting the winch, and then put everything back in place. As you can see, the Warn winch plate comes with quite a bit of stuff to help make this installation as simple as possible. You can also see that the winch plate is very beefy. It's a 1/4 inch thick. It's quite bulky and quite heavy. And so are the plates that help align it to the frame, along with the Hawse Fairlead pass-through and some pretty substantial hardware that comes with it. So this is the heart of the muscle that we're adding to the front of the JL today. A new Warn VR10S winch system. I chose the VR10, the synthetic rope, due to all of the recommendations and reviews that I've had from other Jeepers and around YouTube. I also chose the Warn name for its great reputation that it has and the long-lasting warranty that it comes with. I chose 10,000 pounds because that well exceeds the weight of this Jeep, but also because I may be called upon from time to time to assist in the field with recovery of another vehicle. And I hope that if I ever actually need that weight, it'll come through and hold up. The first step in the process starts with removing this plastic trim piece. It's rather easy to do just by popping out the 2 push pins and discarding the plastic trim piece. The next step is to remove these 5 T45 hex bolts to get this beauty plate off, and we'll reuse this hardware just for aesthetic purposes to plug the holes. And the plate comes right out. So Warn provides 5 of these 13mm nuts to go on the back of these stock bolts just to fill the holes on the front of the fascia, and we'll make sure we go ahead and do that. Next, we're going to remove the front license plate cover by pressing these little tabs on the back side and pushing the plate forward, and it pops right off. Then the instructions call for unplugging the front fog light wiring harness, and it's a simple matter of pressing this tab and pulling it free. Next, the instructions call for removing the 8 18mm bolts that hold the bumper to the frame. I happen to have a deep 18mm socket, and you might need one too. Now with the bumper removed, you can get a really good look at the front sway bar disconnect unit. It's located right down here between the two frame members. Next, we're going to use a 16mm socket to remove the bolts from the skid plate mounting bracket. Next, we're going to put the skid plate back on along with the worn winch plate mounting bracket. Now here's one thing that Warren doesn't tell you. If you have the Rubicon model with the sway bar disconnect unit, you need to put the carriage bolts into the bracket first, or you're not going to get them through the back before you put the large 16mm bolts into the skid plate mount. To accomplish the next step, you actually need to install the winch plate. To do this step, you need to fiddle with a lot of loose parts and just hand tighten all the nuts and bolts at this stage of the install. Warren provides these very handy, very large zip ties to help you tie the plate to the frame and hold it in place while you're assembling everything. To properly mount the winch, Warren has included these little square nuts, 9/16 inch, that go inside the legs of the winch unit. Once held captive in there, they're prone to falling out. So I'm going to cover them with a little piece of tape so that they stay in place while you put the winch inside the winch plate. Now that we've got the winch mounted in the plate, we're going to go ahead and use these 1 1/4 inch mounting screws to secure it to the plate. Now on the inside of the bumper, Warren provided these nice spacer plates to go right over the outside edge of the studs before returning the bumper to the Jeep. Now that we've got the bumper reinstalled, it's time to go in and tighten up all the winch mounting plates to secure the winch plate to the frame. And let's not forget the 16mm bolts for the skid plate mount. The last step in this process is to install the Hawse Fairlead and the backing plate. And since this is really a 3 or 4 hand job, I've used my favorite little third hand with some duct tape around the bumper to hold things in place until I can get them installed. So we're going to use a bolt to come through the hole, a lock washer, and the nut on the outside. Now we're going to wire the power to the winch directly to the battery posts. We're going to begin by starting with the positive side. We're going to put it right here on this post on the battery. So we're going to fully unscrew that. We're going to place our cable right down on that terminal and return the bolt. always return the dust covers. Make sure you don't touch it as you're touching the negative side of the house. Next, we're going to put the negative side right here with the regular battery cable. And return the nut. Nice and snug. All connected. So now that we've completed the installation, let's go ahead and install the connector, the controller, and test for functionality. And we'll go ahead and snug it up on the recovery point. Disconnect, replace the dust cover. Installation is complete. So now that we're all complete, there's a few lessons learned I'd like to pass on to you, and maybe a couple tips that might help you should you decide to go with a similar installation on your JL. First and foremost is that you must remember when you're installing the winch plate that you're sandwiching a 1/4 inch thick plate between the frame rails and the bumper. And what is not really well called out for in the instructions, but it is there, I found it later, is that the undercarriage skid plate will not quite fit when you put it back on because it mounts to the bumper and to some frame rail mounting points. What I did was I found a neat tip on YouTube, and I'll pass it on to you, is that I re-loosened the side mountings for the winch plate, and then I got underneath and loosened those carrier bolts on the skid mount on the bottom, and I took a rubber mallet to it and I pushed those mounts as far forward as I could possibly get them. Then I re-tightened the winch plate back down, I got back up underneath the Jeep, and with just a little bit of persuasion I was able to get the skid plate remounted in its stock location without having to enlarge the holes on the skid plate. The instructions do say that you may need to notch those holes, so depending on your particular installation that may become a necessity. Another thing is that the VR10S came with a very heavy steel black Hawse Fairlead that I didn't much care for. So I purchased this nice polished aluminum piece of kit for the front of the Jeep. I think you'll like the way it sets it off. Someday I might choose to color it red, as I like the red highlights that are on the black and white JL. So I hope you like this final product as much as I do. I'm really pleased with the outcome, I'm really happy with the winch, and I think it looks really nice and stealthy on the Jeep. If you like this, please hit like and subscribe below to get more content from 4Low Rocks in the future. Thanks for watching.